Small boats. They line the Steelhead rivers in the fall and in the spring. Bob Garner, Jeff Pierce, and John Olson are fishing with Patriarch Charter Captain Emil Dean aboard his jet-powered riverboat. Back in the 70s, when Emil started river fishing to extend his charter boat season, he and Joe Kimmerly designed this style of riverboat. It's made from aluminum with a water jet engine. Now, jet engines aren't really popular on fishing boats. They're not that easy to control, and they gobble the gas. But Emil found that on a river, especially a good steelhead river that's full of snags and rocks, a jet boat is a lifesaver because it doesn't have a propeller that juts down into the water. So it can skim over logs and sandbars. All it needs is a few inches of water, and it makes it with no damages. That's what makes Emil's design so good on the river. The Manistee River is where Emil Dean spends his winters, taking customers out nearly every day. From the fall right through to the spring, when the salmon start hitting in the Great Lakes, Emil catches steelhead trout from this river. Now, you don't find the trout just anywhere. Emil has learned over the years where they're concentrated. He knows where the deep holes lie that hold the trout and those undercut banks. These are the areas he goes right to and fishes. He likes to get up early so he can fish from daylight until the time that the consumer's power plant releases water over the turbines at Tippy Dam just upstream. That rush of water late in the morning raises the height of the Manistee by several feet, and naturally that changes the fishing significantly. The water hasn't risen yet, and Emil drops the anchor 20 yards upstream from a deep hole he says always holds fish. And here's one of Emil's favorite lures. That's a Hottentot with a big lip that causes the lure to dive deep and zigzag back and forth in the current. Emil's famed technique is called the drop-back method. Now, you don't cast to the steelhead and you don't troll. You anchor above the holes and use Dacron line that doesn't stretch and drop the lure back in the current a foot at a time. Hold it for 10 or 15 seconds, then drop it back another foot or two. When you're through the hole, you reel the lure back in and start over. Instead of scaring the fish, this small boat seemed to trigger a strike.
Oh, a little one.
With a steelhead on, the other anglers pull in their lines so the fish wouldn't get tangled. Just when it looks like a steelhead is coming to the net easily, you find that it has other ideas. That's why Emil has everyone pull their lines in when one is on. In the river, the fish dodge back and forth in the current like a kite in the wind, and you frequently see its flash. As it gets closer to the net, it breaks the surface, and you can see how big and powerful a steelhead can be.
Hey, wait, he's coming over that way, though.
Okay, bring him around this side, hold it this way.
Okay. It's about getting.
Oh, I hate it when they do that. Pull him right towards me if you can, though.
All right. Whoa.
How about that?
Emil netted the fish and saved his hat all in one swoop. Well, this was an important steelhead for Jeff Pierce. He had been steelheading several times over the years, fishing from shore, and he had never caught one. A little disappointing. Steelheading is a lot like deer hunting. You have to be at the right place at the right time. You can't count on steelhead the way you can count on bluegills or catfish or perch. But Emil Dean knows the holes, and he knows how to catch them. And he knows how to make his customers comfortable. On the kerosene heater in the cabin, a pot of fresh steelhead chowder had been simmering. Now, this was a recipe we featured on TV several years ago. It was in our 1986 Fish and Wild Game Classics cookbook, and we call it Emil's Fish Chowder. It contains evaporated milk, and is it tasty. This is the way to get more enjoyment out of a hunting or fishing trip. Take some good warm food along, especially if it's a fish or game recipe you cooked yourself at home. Now, there's lots of things that you can make ahead, heat up on a boat or in the woods or on the tailgate of a truck. And there's nothing against taking a midday break and driving to a local restaurant. That can be fun when you're up north. But as long as you can stay warm outdoors, consider making a project out of your lunch. I tell you, food never tastes better than when you're outdoors. You can leave the rods in the holders with the line out. Every now and then you catch a fish during lunch. Well, it didn't happen today, but there weren't any complaints. With one nice steelhead already in the cooler and a hot bowl of Emil's steelhead chowder in hand, there was no need to burrow into the heated cabin to keep warm. After lunch, it's back down the river to try some of the holes they passed up on their way upstream in the morning. Now, the steelhead trout we're after look a lot like salmon, but they're actually a large version of the rainbow trout that's found in many small streams throughout North America. The steelhead strain migrates to open water, the Great Lakes, or to the ocean, where they eat like the salmon. They grow large, sometimes over 20 pounds. Then they go back to the rivers each year to spawn. This is when the anglers like to go after them, because in the rivers they really fight. Oftentimes you'll see them leap completely out of the water, and every now and then you'll get one that does it several times. That is a thrill. No matter how they battle, you can count on a knockdown drag-out that'll keep you busy.
Right up. There we go. There he is.
The time to think steelhead fishing is between October and April, although the biggest runs come in the spring. All of the major rivers that feed into the Great Lakes attract steelhead, as well as steelhead fishermen.
Fella.
All right.
That's how it's done. You can fish the drop-back method from a small boat with an outboard motor. You need just a good anchor, a few deep-running lures, a pot of Emil's fish chowder, and the usual dose of fisherman's luck that's always a big part of successful steelheading.